All right, so on this first one, what you're going to do is you're going to isolate that radical. Remember, step one is always to isolate radical. Okay? So I'm going to take this problem. I'm going to rewrite it real quick just to make it easier. And I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And so that's going to give me 8 equals the square root of 15r plus 4. Okay? My next step is I'm going to square or cube both sides, right? So I'm going to square both sides, and that's going to get rid of that square root, right? So that's going to give me 64 equals 15r plus 4. Okay? Can you go let that person in? Thank you. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and that's going to give me 60 equals 15r. I'm going to divide by 15 on both sides. And so r is going to equal 60 divided by 15, which is going to give me 4, right? Thank you, babe. Now remember, we've got to check for extraneous solutions. So we're going to take 4, and we're going to plug it back in. Okay, so our step 3 was to solve. Okay, and then step 4 is to check. So we're going to take 4 and we're going to plug it back into the original equation. So here's what that looks like. We take 4 and plug it back into the original equation. So we know that 15 times 4 is going to give us 60. And 60 plus 4 is going to give me 64. The square root of 64 is 8. 8 plus 10, is that equal to 18? Yes, so our answer should be 4. All right, so I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to pause, and let you ask questions if you need to. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at that next one. Looking at the next one. So on this one, we got a lot going on. We're trying to solve for b, right? But we've got a b that's underneath the radical, and we also have one chilling out here. Okay? So what we're going to do first is notice how there is a 2 out front here, a 2 right here, and 16 is also divisible by 2. So in order to get rid of all of those 2's, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Okay, this is going to make my life a little bit easier. It's going to be smaller numbers. And I'm going to divide by -2 since 2 of these are negative, right? Okay, so when I do that, I'm going to get 8 equals b minus the square root of 19 minus 2b. Okay? And so now we're just going to follow our steps. Okay, so we're going to isolate the radical by moving this b to the other side. Okay, so we're going to subtract this b and move it to the other side. So minus b. So we've got negative b plus 8 equals negative 19 minus 2b. So now we're going to square both sides. Okay, so we're going to take both sides and square it. Okay, and that's going to get rid of this radical. It's also going to get rid of this negative. So we're going to have 19 minus 2b on one side. On the other side, we're going to FOIL this out. So that's going to look like this. Okay, so once you multiply all of that out, that's what that's going to look like. Now, remember, we've got a quadratic now. Okay, and I know we haven't dealt a lot with quadratics in this unit, but we'll want to move everything to one side in order to solve. Okay, so we're going to add 2b to the other side. So that's going to give me b squared minus 14b. I'm going to subtract 19. So that's going to give me 45. You good? Okay, so we've got b squared minus 14b plus 45. Okay? So if we factor this, or if you put this into your graphing calculator and you check where it crosses the x-axis, this is going to give you b minus 5 and b minus 9. So that's going to give you positive 5 and positive 9. Now, I know you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to do quadratics. This is too much work. If this is a multiple choice question, what I would do just to save me time is I would go in and I would take my answer choices and I would plug them in. Okay, because obviously I've got 5 and 9 as an answer choice, but we always have to check. Remember, that's our step 4. We always have to check for extraneous solutions. So I'm going to take 5 and 9 and plug it back in to check and see. So I've got negative 16 equals, and I'm going to plug in 5 because I know 9 probably works because it's 3 of the answer choices. So I'm going to plug in 5. Okay? So that's going to give me negative 2b plus 2 times 19 minus 2, and I'm plugging in 5, right, for all my b's. Okay? So this is going to give me negative 16 equals negative 10 plus 2 times the square root of 19 minus 10. So this will give me 19 minus 10 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And so this gives me negative 10 plus 6, which is negative 4. Is negative 4 equal to negative 16? No. Okay, so it's not these two answer choices. So now we're going to take 9 and plug it in. It has to work for both of them. It can't just work for one. Okay, so I'm going to plug in 9 into the original function, right, to check my work. So I'm going to plug in 9 into my original function to check my work. Okay, so negative 2 times 9 is going to give me negative 18. 2 times the square root of 19 minus 2 times 9, so 19 minus 18. Okay, so then I've got negative 18 plus 2 times square root of 1. Square root of 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 18 plus 2 is negative 16. Is that equal to negative 16? Yes. So my answer should be 9. Okay. Questions on that? Okay. So on number 3, I know y'all don't like word problems, but there are a couple of word problems that are on your test, so you need to make sure that you're comfortable with reading. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that problem. So it says the formula that is used to calculate the speed is S equals the square root of 9.8 times D, where S is the speed in meters per second, okay, at which a tsunami moves, and D is the depth in meters of the ocean, okay? All right, so if an oceanographer calculated a tsunami speed to be 195 meters per second, what's the depth of the ocean at that time? Round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so we've got 195 meters per second is our S in this instance. And we're trying to find what D is. Okay? So we're going to plug in 195 in for S. 195 in for S. And then now we're going to solve for D. So we're going to square both sides. And that's going to give us 9.8 D on this side. And on the other side, we're going to get 38,025. In order to get D by itself, we're going to divide by 9.8. And so that's going to give me D equals 3,880. And this is round to the nearest whole number. So we're just going to leave it in meters. Okay, so 4 and 5 are exactly how we did in 1 and 2. So I want you to take a moment, try those two. Again, if you're like, I don't even know where to start, take your answer choices and plug them in and check it. Okay, obviously 7 is already an answer, so take the other answer choices and plug it in, right? Okay, so we're going to plug this in. So we're going to take 8 and plug it in for both m's. So we get 8 minus 3 equals the square root of 3 times 8 minus 5. So 8 minus 3 is 5. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 minus 5 is 19. The square root of 19 is not equal to 5, so it's not 8. Let's try B. Plug in 1. We get 1 minus 3. Well, we're never going to have a negative number. So 1 minus 3 is negative 2. We're never going to have a negative number equal a positive square root. So it's definitely not B. Okay. If we plug in negative 1 in here, we would get, again, a negative number can't equal a positive square root. So it's not C. So it has to be D. Okay. Looking at that next one, I'm going to plug in negative 3 first. So I'm going to plug in negative 3 first. So I'm going to take negative 3 plus 3. 7 times negative 3 plus 65. Okay, so this is going to equal 0 over here. And over here, this is going to equal negative 21 plus 65. Well, I know that's not going to equal 0. So definitely not that one. Let's plug in negative 7. Okay, so we get negative 7 plus 3 equals 7 times negative 7 plus 65. So negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4. Can't have a negative equal positive. That's not going to be that one. If I plug in negative 8 in for here, well, we already know negative 7 is not going to work, so it's not going to be that one. So let's plug in 8 just to make sure that it works correctly. So let's plug in 8. So 8 plus 3, 7 times 8 plus 65. 8 plus 3 equals 11. 7 times 8 gives us 56. And then 56 plus 65 is 121. Square root of 121 is going to give us 11. 11 equals 11, so 8. Okay? Questions?